excuse me, Senator Slotkin, they have they've been CBS Channel 3 News attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others about the World Trade Center attack. And you guys they have courts calling, they have people making rape threats. And like people tied to former director of the FBI and Robert Luskin and CIA that you guys are taking positions with fake news, the World Trade Center predicate acts. They have some Mendez police at Weathersfield police that attached me to fake conversations with them. I never had a word of conversation ever with the reportedly the older brother of Eric Mendez. I never had a class with Eric Mendez. I never saw him around campus. They tried to make a couple fake exceptions years apart, real quick, real fast, specifically to hide what's actually recorded. They were shown they need to at campuses A through Z. These are people intercities. Increasingly, the Scalora family I never had class with. They have collusions with people that have been planting evidence on all sides of my house with foreign and domestic intelligence families, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and proven sexual and medical offenders of kids, and more recorded then and now. Also, tactically, delusions are off. Please follow mandated law, Senator. Get me off of fake conversations with WFSB. Don't change the fake what I say into other things. You guys have sick roles, collusions too with delusions. And it's not, you guys can be healed. You say that, in other words, there's only one president that we know as a founder if you pay attention, but you were misinformed about your campuses. James Madison and our plural founders had declassified why and how, only referred to James Madison and the unknown founders. They didn't have the security to let us know their names. You say, oh, well, it was the people that were at the Constitutional Convention, the Declaration of Independence. They were forced to be there. And don't say they weren't dictators. You don't vote on slavery. You guys can't even explain slavery because nature would have shown us, as it showed the little kids with black people's whites of eyes. We have many, many people with titles that value the right to lie. Value how they're actually with all the countries, with the campuses together. Here they're sick. It's tied to, and nature showing it. And the breaching method uses those collusions to show them they can't afford to, everyone they can't afford to have why and how. There's a witch child's place next to Webb House. Why and how it's now renamed the Webb Stevens Museum. Why and how then and now it's still presented as collusion / sense for the breaching method too. Other being and having been communicated at founding locations A through Z. Then our founders communicated to those locations. The differences of the guilt of the witch trial courts at the time, even if that was completely made up. That's what it's about. Look at the other laws that were entrenched. I had nothing. Our founder, James Madison, detailed how no one wanted collusions against all women, against Native, against black people as whites of eyes. If anyone spoke up about any of that, there was not just overt criminal enterprises. There were overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists, only capable of being propagated that way, only allowed to be. Otherwise, that body was incensed. Otherwise, this would have emerged. People won't even allow people to be other people to be honest about the extortion of George Washington. He asked us to be honest about his extortion, or would have brought up this James Madison's plan. Instead, the breaching method has it behind its back and shows the experts on the names of the people of sciences how to read them, using the words of the people at the time, pretending that our founders didn't declassify about why and how nobody had free speech. Everyone had to pretend other to an extent / otherwise that body was sensed. And it was adapted to, including if that body was a majority of people, including if it was everyone. There were more than 13 colonies entrenched before America's founders were even born. Already northern colonies and southern colonies, more than 13, already with slavery and only sickly distinctly northern and southern colonies, but only allowed, sickly non-distinctly too. Because it knew while it was unfolding, people have to describe any of those parts to come out of it physically. They have to first describe it as fact-checking nature. We are in a semi-ancient trap. The kids I went to school with recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. A Chick Casper and a Debbie Gold. I never had anything to do with them. They try to make a fake exceptions, make it look like other, and they're put with people putting fake things in databases, and they have collusions from the Britain Superior Court in the Britain all along the back roads through Newington, like near Dearborn Street. Dearborn Street has a bunch of people who have collusions with all sides of criminal and civil cases, and depositions in the crime scenes, in an interbranch of foreign at the same time. Has some collusions with their confessions and demonstrations of collusions with campuses and with people with databases and databases changing and faking what's actually digitally recorded. They hid this from Judge Napolitano, I'm sure, or extent of it too, and they hid their actual motives too. In other words, in sequence shifts relative. A Bugerio is one of the people involved intercities and with intelligence families at next to Central Connecticut State University. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed involved with people on all sides of my area. And he had roles with home break-ins and our car break-ins and stealing radios. I wasn't with him. I don't know who was with it. Judge Smith has been speaking fake things in records with these people. Also, a Judge Killian. Other people have been speaking fake things in sequence shifts in the record. They have roles of torture, extortion, fact-checking nature, slavery, therefore physical, before the World Trade Center attack, during it, and since, as collusion /S. A bunch of people with Washington, D.C. tied to and as. Two speech class teachers I had in high school. Never had a personal conversation with either one of them. One of them had me stay back. She has collusions with people with psychiatry, with a Mike Pandolf, as one of the ones with all sides of criminal and civil cases. And interagencies, there are CIA and FBI involved with other senators still and mayors. Like a Mayor Gold is involved with FBI and courts, planting evidences of side entrances to Millwoods Park. And people with the Parks and Recreation are further involved with Harvard Hospital, with sexual medical offenders of kids, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, the family members of fire departments running into hide life aggressions, the security there, including the unmarked police forms, and their acting professors involved with their whole campuses used remotely, criminally forward influence, tactically delusions raw, consciously, the subjects and the syntax of them, how they're individually grouped in together. The departments are exploited that way. We have black people as whites of eyes to discern this. And they brought it up. They're sequence shifting. I'm going to get them on paper, one name in sequence. Get me off the fake conversations with WFSB News. They attached others to change conversations who were in the World Trade Center attack, right before it, who were in the context and in the court next to it, the Ninth Circuit Court, right before the World Trade Center attack that morning. Increasingly foreign and domestic. They're not just hiding how we went over there. They're trying to defend their country, follow mandate law, because it can be used to show how foreign countries have been using the Connecticut interbranch through time since they were kids, used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. That's how you know my name. It's not even Robert Luskin, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act. His body and soul was used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. To discern it, we have black people's whites of eyes. Yeah, that's inseparable from American history treatments proper. Watch where you see with the delusions too, and the rackets off of how they have such delusions and criminally foreign influence, fact-checking nature, quality aspects in nature, appreciation of American history's principles. The suburbs, the people, while they were being tortured, extorted, enslaved, hurt, even if they heard people trying to speak about infrastructure outside of internationally monitored conversations. Even then, they still spoke and wanted this. They built the suburban houses the way they did. They're still one standing since before our founders were born. They were designed for it to be on negative identity grounds, identity in relation to itself, potential /S, to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. And a whole bunch of people needed to counter that and try to overcome it by valuing the only means to do that, by valuing means to cause criminal insidiousness natures of positives out of negatives. And then to be instead that as collusion slash orchestrated to specifically to have in the future, no one could go back and discern how the breaching method was roles of that. See, forgiveness is for a number of reasons. One of them is because to where we could discern that which had slavery entrenched sickly distinctly northern colonies and southern colonies, but also non-distinctly. And nobody wanted collusions with that. But you have them the reasons self out that we could discern when you try to debate anyone who does try to debate anyone who tries to use things like how we have black people's rights of eyes. We have means to discern there's a breaching method there that everyone's leaving out roles with it. Our founders did not have roles with slavery. We don't know their names. James Madison is the only president that we know for certain was our founder. The other founders were only there because they were forced to be by James Madison's plan. And those plural founders that we were directed to understand that they forced the other founders to be there, a part of the Declaration of Independence, part of the Constitutional Convention. And you guys have that replaced, and you guys are screening it for the breaching method. You guys are sensing self-evaluation. Oh, we'll play music, George Washington or Thomas Jefferson, and play music, call them our founder. It's not to say that they weren't one of the founders, but our founders, through James Madison, he detailed why and how only they detailed why and how only to refer to them as him. That's how they know. Well, but what about what they said about T-tax and all that? But they had to make up fake lies because there were laws not in sense and sensibilities of overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists, witch trials courts. Not, in other words, or the equivalent. Even northern colonies and southern colonies was a breaching method entrenched and only allowed collusions with such, even slavery. Then America's founders were born. That's what they communicated for us to explain. Instead, people go, oh, America's founders owned slaves. And the counters of it go, and they pretend that other than James Madison was our founder. Or would have brought this up. Would have brought up how James Madison's plan caused the Civil War. Because both the North and the South did not have the right to speak up against slavery, because it was against the internationally monitored conversations. The overt criminal enterprises, the private ones, the international companies, they didn't get along with each other. They still had countries. Why do you think the suburbs look alike from America to Russia to Ukraine? Even though we have cars, trains, trucks, cranes, but they wanted to build better then. While they had to be frightened to even speak about it too. Before cars, before our founders were even born. That's what's the pathology, so to speak. The ground, hyper-additionally as our identity, as the human species body of individual bodies. The Britain Superior Court has roles with all kinds of rape threats, roles with smoke crimes, poison crimes, identity theft, fraud, slaves, fabricated police, all kinds of wire crime acts and methods, including fabricating police phone transcripts, including Wethersfield Police, fake me being at the police station and speaking with them as a kid and now as an adult too. And they forced Saudi's to collusions with that. Same ones tied to my Saudi ex before I knew her. You guys got to get the Wethersfield Police on paper, one name in sequence, and from the name, they have collusions, multiple courts, personally and professionally, their family members. They have a little daughter of a Leahy family involved with identity theft, fraud, slander. Little cowards can't get on paper. Get me off fake conversations with them. Watch when you see the agencies. They have a whole wire crime acts methods, whole mail crime methods. Watch with the torture, extortion, slavery they had before they had roles with the Patriot Act. Watch since founding the readings of statutes and precedents. How the abuses of them since when they were kids had this replaced. Oh, pace. Get them on paper. They're sequence shifting. They have when people with threats. That's what you guys have roles with the overt criminal enterprises, private ones. The same names planted evidence all sides of my house and with my teachers behind my back. They'll tell you this too. I was only nice to people growing up. No, they try no. All exceptions they try to pretend other with. In other words, get them on paper, one name and sequence. Little cowards into branch through administrations too. It's getting worse. You guys are still leaking now. You guys already use the right to lie where you don't have the right to lie. Then the January 6th treatments, because the same ones on off the state capital of Connecticut are involved with interstates and Washington, D.C. with my two. And with the corrections offices and judicial branch offices of Connecticut have collusions and predicate acts with fax methods next to the campuses. They're putting fake things in databases. Collusions hyper additionally only capable of being because of from off campuses originally and still. There was a hyper collusion /S, and they have all these countries involved with the campuses together, and they're directed to hide those things. And that makes a whole bunch of styles. Oh, I was CIA. Big guys are predicate acts with facts, methods /S, predators. You guys are, in other words, interbranch. I had countries A through Z at the same time. Here ain't the need. Prepare your mind. Prepare your brains for mine. Prepare your souls. Who disbelieves? Get me off fake conversations with WFSB about the World Trade Center attack, and get them on paper right now with the Dean, the Michael Emmett, and the Michael Levine and others brought up by the principal child abusers' confessions, and what they hid with that. They have people with the name Scalora further involved with sexual medical offenders of kids, identity thefts and frauds, slanders between campuses of all ages and natures, putting fake things in databases and acting tied to it, as ones involved with the World Trade Center attack too, interstates and internationally timed collusion /S. Families named Scalora are involved with that. Get them on paper and pull off the fake ties to me. I never had conversations with them. Tried to pretend other from across the gym years ago. Tried to play a fake exception. A subby Scalora. Increasingly, Fred Grisey has collusions with foreign domestic intelligence with the state capitol and with sexual and medical offenders of kids. And people named John Maiano, who came on my street, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, also things tied to them. Planted evidences next to Trinity College and CCSU and the Mark Twain House and next to the Capitol with this Maiano and a whole bunch of people, a Casper family. Also, identity theft, fraud, slanders with a whole bunch of foreign and domestic doctors that a Yagman family also has collusions with untimely deaths and drugs crimes with the little kids, with some Mendez police and others at the police department, putting fake transcripts there with the FBI directors, plural too, with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his lawyer, Robert Chevrolet, people next to his offices, which is not far from the state capitol too, and East Hartford locations involved with them, with the ones with the name Scalora. These are also medical and fire campuses with a whole bunch of other countries. And Sense and Sensibilities, the family members are running into high life progression. Bunch of fakes were fakes. A breaching method showed you that. You have to hide things from the past. Years later, too, like time collusion /S. All kinds of things were recorded on Facebook that they can't afford to have discerned. Then they take the Facebook page, they take it again. Whole bunch of fakes in background. Get them the heck on paper. Get me off fake. They're putting people in fake conversations and databases with people that aren't in their classes, and with a whole bunch of other countries, time collusions with it, and names next to body dumping spots. Sal Civiello and his neighbors are increasingly involved with body dumping spots years ago, and people with whiting forensics and state police and foreign and domestic military or work criminal enterprises, private ones, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, untimely deaths, and put their educators too, with them putting fake things in databases and acting tied to it. And the people aren't even never even around each other to be able to say anything about it. Any exceptions too, they use that criminally poor influence too. It has something to do with DACA. It appears. It may just be an illusion. But a whole bunch of countries at the same time in their rules with uses of differences in religious spots and fake motivations. Even when they have true motivations, they use that for lies. The way the breaching method needs. In other words, follow mandated law.